John Wesley said. He talked about not only making as much money as we can, and this was the guy that got booted out of the fancy church and preached to the coal miners, but he still taught this lesson about money, that to make all you can and to save all of you can and to give all you can to do the mission that you are called to do.
Welcome to the Big Money Influencers Podcast. We talk with top influencers and experts to help you navigate and prosper in your business. It's all about creating wealth, legacy, and an online presence. Here's your host, Ceanne Livingston.
Welcome back to the Big Money Influencers Summit. Glad that you're here. I'm talking to Rev Todd, and we're talking about money tonight. He's an amazing friend and business associate of mine, and he has a lot of awesome stuff to drop regarding wealth and belief systems. But when he talks, he has a lot of great things to say. Todd, what do you do?
First of all, thank you for having me, Ceanne. This is a really great conference and summit, and I really am excited to get to share with everyone about what I think. So I appreciate you having me here. I am a pastor, and I'm ordained in the United Methodist Church. I have a church that I started called Exile, and we meet in places outside of church buildings. So parks and coffee shops and bars and breweries. We are in New Mexico. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I started a lot of these in northern New Mexico. Now that COVID is over, I'm restarting a bunch of them, and I'm really excited to get back into the game after a year of doing online things.
Absolutely. Been there, done that. Ready to get back in the game myself. I know that you are into doing a lot of different outreach, and I imagine you're serving people that aren't usually going into the church when you were talking about going into the bars and the restaurants and the different places. Who are you mostly focused on? Who is your heart for?
I have two main groups of people that I really focus on. And one is where my heart really lies the most is with people that have had bad experiences with church and that don't have a relationship with God. In any way. Those are my people, and those are the people that I really have a lot in common with. And I really feel like those are the people that I want to engage spiritually in some different ways and connect them to God in a way where God can kind of take over and do the rest of it. So I'm not real into trying to get them to think certain things or convert to them or anything like that. But I do like to make connections and practice what I call relational evangelism. Which is just sharing God and sharing the divine with people in ways that's through a relationship that we already have. So I try to put the relationship first. That's where my heart is truly. But if I'm the only one out there doing that kind of evangelism, then I'm only able to talk to the people I'm able to talk to. So I really am also very passionate about the people that are in church or go to church or are cool with church and maybe just don't go. I want to train them and help them build relationships and friendships with people so that they can share good news with them about the divine as well. And so those are the two main groups. And I start churches in twos when I start my churches, because one is for people that are cool with church, but we meet in some of these places and we talk about how to hang out and practice it together, practice hanging out with new people and meeting new people, starting conversations, developing those relationships. Because there's a study that came out that said the longer we're in church, the less friends we have outside of our churches. What happens is the church kind of turns in on itself and it creates kind of the problems that we're seeing happen now in a lot of ways. And so I'm really trying to address that by getting people out of the doors and into the world in different ways. Not everyone needs to go to bars, obviously, but that's where I hang out. I play in a rock band. I'm a drummer in a rock band and spend a big chunk of my life in bars. And so that's where I'm comfortable, but I try to help other people do this in places where they're comfortable as well. So those are the two main groups of people that I am really intentional about engaging with. So I speak in a lot of churches, like traditional churches, and then I start my churches during the week. And I do it with both groups so that we have different foci in each meeting. That's what I do and why I do it.
Cool. I wasn't planning on asking you this, but how long have you been doing this? When did you start?
I had this idea in around 2004. I had the idea, and I was working on my doctorate at the time. And I decided I wanted to write my dissertation about it because I kind of played with the idea and kind of tried it and it was very weird for me at first and didn't really know how to do it. So I wrote my dissertation about it, about doing this church in this way. And if we base church on the Israelite exile in 586 BC, that if we base it on that, where the Israelites were exiled into Babylon in Egypt, and they were separated from people, so they had to worship God without a temple, without a building. And they had to do it in their houses or in the marketplace, and in places that they could kind of hang out in common with people. Because Christianity in the United States is decreasing and declining, I thought that might be a better model for how do we act when we're the minority? How do we act when we're not in power? How do we act when we're shrinking and the world around us is growing in different ways? And so I feel like hospitality turns itself on its head when you look at it that way. Man, it's been about close to 20 years I've been doing it in different ways. My band and I went on the road and we started churches. We called it Outlaw Church, and at campsites and at bars we played at, we would meet and we would just like one time get people together, have a conversation about the Bible or a Bible story. And we'd play some music that everyone knew, like some Beatles tunes or Zeppelin tunes or whatever that people could sing along to. And then my bass player would cook everybody food. And so it was really a cool way of doing it, which really got me the idea of how to start it. Once we got off the road, started recording an album, I started to do things that could meet regularly in New Mexico, because that's where we were recording, and then kind of just took off from there.
That's awesome. I hadn't heard that story before. I'm asking all my panelists, what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth is to me, it's an accumulation of resources, and the resources that you have. And the more resources you have, money is one of them. But I feel like friendships and people are resources as well that also can make us feel wealthy. That's not really just about money, but it's about a lot of other things. And some of them are intangible, but all of them are resources. And all of them are things that help us accomplish our mission, our individual mission, or our purpose, or our vocation, or our calling, or whatever you want to call it. To me, the wealth is the resources that we accumulate that help us to accomplish those things. And so it can look a lot of different ways, but I feel like we have to treat each of those things very similarly in order to build that wealth. Like you have to take care of it and nurture it and focus on it, but also not let it control you and not have a unhealthy codependent relationship on money or, people or other resources that we tend to have. Food, right? We can have unhealthy relationships with food. To me, the wealth is what we do, but the mission is the thing that we have to keep in front of us all the time. But we should collect as many tools as we possibly can, in my mind, in order to do the work that God is calling us to do. And the more tools that we gather and the better we get at using those tools, that really helps us to accomplish what God's calling us to do. So I want to share 3 different things that really are the biggest influences to me about money and wealth and how I'm supposed to handle those things. And so I like to broaden ideas, which is why I brought in wealth to be something bigger than money. But I also, a lot of really great followers of Jesus have taken vows of poverty, and they have done things out of poverty and done things out of need. And I think that forces us to put the mission first and focus on the mission. Once we're focused on that mission, to me, the more resources we have can really help us accomplish that. Just because some really awesome people have done it through poverty, that doesn't mean we're all called to do it that way. Obviously, wealth can be an idol, can become something that can start to control us instead of us using it as a tool. And so that's a really important thing, I think, that I'm going to touch on a little bit, but that's not what this is really about. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I just want to put that out there because scriptures like the love of money is the root of all evil and other scriptures that people talk about, a lot of those scriptures to me are about not letting money or wealth or people or other resources control us. That we have to be the ones in control, and we use those things to do something greater than what that is. And whether we believe in the divine or not, or our spiritual lives or not, I think there's still something bigger, because why get a bunch of wealth if we don't know what we're going to do with it? So I think we always have to keep that in our mind. My favorite thing that I like to talk about when it comes to wealth is the parable of the talents. And this is in Matthew chapter 25, which is maybe my favorite chapter of the Bible, and if I'm allowed to have favorites. And it's verses 14 through 30. to read through it. And what I'd like y'all to do as you're listening to it, think about where you are and which of these people are you. Because I think there's some different advice depending on where we are in our journey, which is a really cool thing about the Bible, is that you can read it, and when you're in a different place, it means something very different. This is Matthew chapter 25, verse 14. For it is as if a man, and Jesus is telling this story. Anyway, Jesus taught a lot through stories. So this is Jesus telling a story. For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. And then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once, traded them, and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had the 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money.
Learn the secrets entrepreneurs can use to create wealth and legacy. Discover exactly how the top 1% are building financial success, wealth, and a legacy quickly in their business. These are the only secrets you need to create wealth and legacy when it comes to building your online presence. When you visit bigmoneyinfluencerlive.com, you will get free access to the exclusive Big Money Influencers Live business kit. It teaches proven secret strategies that successful entrepreneurs are using daily to create wealth and legacy in their business. Foolproof methods established business owners are using to live and build wealth and legacy. We know you're busy, so we have convenient audios, which include foolproof methods established business owners use to build wealth and legacy. Easy to follow binder notes. And if you're ready to 10x your online presence or ready to take your business online, you can book a call and discover how to get started. Visit bigmoneyinfluencerlive.com. That's bigmoneyinfluencerlive.com.
But the one who received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And then the one with 2 talents also came forward, saying, Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Then, and this is where the ominous music starts. Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew that you are a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and I hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master replied, You wicked and lazy slave, you knew, did you, that I reap where I do not sow and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with 10 talents. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. For as for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That parable, thought about it a lot, and there's some troubling stuff in there. But I want us all to think about where we are in this story. If we're the servant that has 5 talents and we go and we make 5 more because that's what we're entrusted with, I think that it's an important thing to bring up that this master isn't supposed to be representative of God, because he does things like reaps where he doesn't sow or gets things from where he doesn't scatter, and the man is afraid of him. And so Jesus isn't trying to say this is how God works, but I think Jesus is trying to say this is how wealth works, that everybody isn't doing the right thing all the time, and people do greedy things and people do things we don't always think are right, but it's up to us. What are we going to do with what we're entrusted with? But from other people, no matter who those people are, and we have to do the right thing with what we have. I really believe that this is how wealth works. We get a certain amount, and what we do with that, if we're good with that, we tend to get more of it. And as we tend to get more of it, and it just makes sense. If you're good with money and you invest it well and you start a business or you do other things with it that make more money, you're going to have more money to use. And we see it all the time that people that have a lot tend to get more. I play in a rock band, and when we're doing well and when we're playing at bigger shows, we get a lot of stuff for free. People give us drinks and give us food, and people want to take us out and do stuff. When we play small shows and we sleep in the van and we have no money and we're kind of ragged and not doing really well, people don't seem to want to take us out as much. And so there's just some real truths to this story and this idea. And there's other places in the Bible that really talk about this wealth in this way as well. So it's really important what we do with what we have. And maybe we're the person with 5, and with 5 talents, and we have this, a lot right now. We have an abundance. Or maybe we're the person with 2 who doesn't have a lot, but we have more than some people. And it's important for us to do with what we have. Instead of wishing we were the person with 5, just do what you can do with the 2. And then you'll have 4, and then you'll get more that way. But the thing we don't want to do is be the person that doesn't have much and we get scared, right? And this is the fear that this man hides it because he is afraid of what the master is going to do if he messes it up. So he doesn't take a risk. He doesn't take chances. He doesn't use the resources that he has to do something big. He just protects it, and he just saves it. And he doesn't even do it in a way that gets interest, as the master points out in this story. I know that in times of my life, I have been afraid like that. And I have done things out of fear rather than out of wanting to do more and wanting to expand and wanting to do the right thing with what I have, because I feel like, well, if only I had more, I could do this. I wouldn't feel as risky, like it's as risky if I had a bunch of money. I could just spend it and then I'd be great, right? I wouldn't be afraid of it, but I only have a little, so I better hold on to that little. But this story, I love it so much because that's exactly where the guy with 2 talents is. Like he only has twice as much as the one guy with 1, right? He only has 1 more than him. Very important that we do with what we have and we take risks, because that's how we get more. I think that that's a really important story when it comes to the conversation of wealth. So that's kind of my first idea. Did you have any thoughts on that, Ceanne?
I think that, I totally agree. Probably, I guess my revelation that I had was, it doesn't all have to be, you talked about wealth being in money and relationships and different areas of your life. And I think you can be in all those different places at the same time, because you can be fearful in relationships or in fruitful in our fitness and our health, and then holding back and doing average when it comes to money. I think that's the revelation I got. Definitely fear. I was having a conversation with one of the speakers earlier. When we're holding back in fear, we're robbing people. It's just like he's burying his talent in the ground, but we're absolutely robbing those people that we could be serving. It's like we're robbing our family and our spouse and our kids and the people we are called to serve. Definitely.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a really important thing too, that's not just about us, because how many people can we help? That kind of brings me to this second idea that I have. I was ordained in the United Methodist Church, and the United Methodist Church was founded by a man named John Wesley, who was sent by the Church of England to the United States when we first kind of started to colonize the United States. And he was sent over as a missionary. He was preaching in big churches, but they didn't really like the stuff he was saying. And so he kind of got in trouble and they threw stuff at him. And when you read his diaries, it's hilarious because like, oh, they're throwing food at me today and like this and that. And so he started going to the coal mines and just preaching to the coal miners. And then he started having churches at home and started having churches in other places because they didn't really want him in the church. And so he found another way to do it, which is a whole other lesson. If what you're doing right now to build wealth isn't working for you, there are other ways to pivot and make it work for you in your style with your way. So if you feel like you're having to change a lot of your style to do something and become somebody that you're not, I would challenge you to look at what can you do with who you are, because I believe that God creates us all to be able to do certain things. And we have to keep that in mind as we're moving forward, because if we're acting like somebody else, it's not going to be fulfilling to us. And we're not going to be able to build as much wealth. And really that's it's a fear-based model. Like what we were talking about before. Well, I can't do it as me, so I have to do it as this alter ego or somebody else. But I believe God calls us to do everything we can with what we have. But so John Wesley had this really famous quote: to gain all you can, to save all you can, and to give all you can. And then the more that we gain, the more we grow in grace, is what John Wesley said. He talked about not only making as much money as we can, and this was the guy that got booted out of the fancy church and preached to the coal miners, but he still taught this lesson about money, that to make all you can and to save all of you can and to give all you can to do the mission that you are called to do. And so we don't just giving money away isn't just giving people money, but it's using that money to do what your mission is and your purpose is and your vocation is. And so I love that. And I love that the United Methodist Church was founded on these ideas of doing the most for people. But in order to do that, we have to create wealth ourselves, which is exactly what you were talking about, Ceanne, where it becomes selfish to live in fear in a lot of ways. And I'm a big sports fan. And so I know I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. And so I know when the Bills are ahead too early, I get nervous, because they always then try to protect their lead, right? They get scared of losing because they're ahead. So they protect their lead. And what usually happens is the other team comes back and beats us a lot of the time, because we're trying to protect ourselves and we get scared of losing rather than trying to do what it takes to win. And so it's true in sports, it's true theologically, it's true in a lot of different ways. And that really brings me to the last idea. When I spent some time in Israel, and when I was in Israel, I went on this tour. And this tour guide took us to the Dead Sea, and they were selling all these different salts and all these different skin creams and all these things that are really good for your skin. And what the tour guide explained to us is he's like, you can go in here, but you can't actually swim. So it's pretty cool, because we all got in and, you lay back and you're just floating. Like, you can't get under the water because there's so many minerals and so much salt in there that you can't actually sink, so you can't really swim. But there's warning signs all over, like, don't get it in your mouth, like, don't put your head under the water, don't get it in your ears or your nose or your eyes or anything, because it'll mess you up. And it's called the Dead Sea because everything comes down there and just dies. The reason that it dies is because you have the Jordan River, which is the big river, but you have a bunch of different lakes and rivers that flow into the Jordan River, and it's the big river, and it flows down into the Dead Sea, and then it stops. It never flows out of the Dead Sea. Nothing flows out of it. It just stops there. So all that water, all the minerals, all the junk that comes through all these different waterways all ends up in the Dead Sea and just stops, and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And then it creates this poison that where fish can't live, nothing really can live. It's just a bunch of minerals, which some of them is good for you, for your skin and things like that. But really everything is dead there, which is obviously in the name of the sea. So the point that I really learned about that is not only does the Bible and theology talk about things having to flow this way, not only does John Wesley talk about that, but the nature actually works this exact way, is when things just flow in and they don't flow out. And it reminds me of this foolish servant that he just buried what he had and he didn't do anything with it. It just stops there. And everything just stops, and it creates death. It creates bad stuff when things just build up. It has to flow out of you. The wealth that you get, you have to use it. And you have to really find ways to maneuver and use your talents and use your gifts and use your resources to do the thing that you are really called to do. And probably many things that we're called to do, because I don't think we're really just supposed to do one thing, but probably a lot of things. But one next thing, what's the next thing we're called to do, and how do we use all of our resources to do that?
All I could think about was going to be in Vegas and in the strip mall, probably at Caesars or something. And then I bought some of that moisturizer or something from the Dead Sea. It was pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's definitely cheaper there.
I think stagnant, but is it stagnant?
Yeah, stagnant. The things stagnate when you don't have movement. Like you got to have movement. And that's with our wealth, and that's with all of our resource, our friendships. Like if you ever been in a friendship or a romantic relationship with somebody, and then you just do, oh, it's Thursday night, time to watch this again, Designing Women or whatever people watch, and a long time ago. But I love that show. You can't just keep doing it. You have to make it fresh. You have to make it exciting. You have to, and that goes with our money, that goes with our friendships, that goes with our relationships, in all sorts of ways, and all of our resources. We have to keep them moving. We got to keep stuff moving, because as soon as we start to stop, things start to stagnate. There's one other example I really love, and that's in the when the Israelites were freed from slavery in Egypt. The quail and the manna were there for them to eat, but if they tried to save it, it got rotten, like overnight. And so God really was training the Israelites while they wandered around in the wilderness for a long time, to only take what you need for the day and use it all, like use it. And then you'll get more, and use it, and you'll get more, and use it, and you'll get more. And that's a really a theological concept that I think is important for us to grasp, is to not just hoard things or save things, but keep them moving, and then more will come. Yeah, I'm here. I'm in California. This is an awesome hotel right across the street from the beach, like literally.
Do you surf at all?
No, when I was in grad school, I took 2 weeks and I went to South Carolina. I went to grad school at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. I took 2 weeks, and in the summer, I went to South Carolina and I rented this big surfboard, because I guess the bigger ones are easier to learn on, but not to do like tricks or anything, but to do just to learn how, because they kind of go better on their own. And so I rented this big old surfboard, and I got lessons. I learned every day. Like I would go and I would take a lesson for a couple hours, and then I would just practice whatever I learned. And then the next day do the same thing for 2 weeks. I worked on it. And then at night, there's this guy who was playing guitar at this bar. I had bongos with me, and he asked me to play with him. And he let me sleep on his couch, and I got free drinks and free food like that whole 2 weeks for playing bongos that every night with this dude at the bar. So it was super fun, like super fun trip. And so I learned how to surf well enough. I caught a few waves, enough for me to say I did it. Not great, but I got that out of my system. So I don't think I'm gonna be doing that anymore. But I just wanted to say I've done it. And so I have done it, but not very well.
And you were flowing too. I think you're flowing out and people were bringing it in.
Exactly. Just like the waves, that's another great metaphor I love, is the waves.
Do you have anything else you want to share?
This is a really important thing for us to realize. The point isn't just to not have wealth. The point is to not let wealth control us. And that's important. And it's a thing that controls a lot of people. So it mentions wealth in the Bible, saying don't let it control you in lots of ways. But it also talks about it in these ways, that you have to use it. And you have to utilize it and get more. And the more that we can do, better we are. And Jesus and his disciples traveled around, and they didn't seem to have jobs, right? But they kind of did. They fished, and they did things that kind of were their jobs before. And so they were kind of working, but also Jesus didn't start doing all of those adventures until he was 30 years old. So I imagine, as a carpenter, he made some cash beforehand. When I was in Israel, we went and visited Peter's mom's house, what they thought was Peter's mom's house. And man, Peter's mom was a baller. Like she had a big house, and she had money, and it was kind of common knowledge that she helped out pay for a lot of the disciples and give them food, give them resources that they needed. And she kind of hooked them up and sponsored them. And there's been a long tradition of people sponsoring church leaders and things like that. So that they can just do what they do and just do their ministry. But if all of us are doing that, if all Christians are just doing that, then we don't have any wealth. We're all just going to be hungry. So building wealth is an important part. And just because we don't read a lot about Jesus clocking in and clocking out doesn't mean he didn't make money before that. And it doesn't mean that he didn't have support, because Mary and Martha is another story. There's a lot of stories about people taking care of them, and Jesus sending the disciples off to go with nothing, to go and let people be hospitable to them. But then they also gave and healed and did a lot of things for other people. And so I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about that I think is important for us to get past so that we can build the wealth we need so we can do what God's calling us to do.
Absolutely. I love that you said allowing people, I think you said allowing people to receive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's an important thing too. Hospitality goes both ways. We have to learn how to give, but we also have to learn how to receive well, also. And people want to give, and we have to give other people the opportunity to not be the Dead Sea as well, and to teach them how to do the things that they need to do with their money. And so we're all in this together.
Todd, because he has been giving and working his butt off the last quite a few months, he won a trip to spend 3 days with our amazing coach, Garrett J. White, and he gets to go play and learn more about his purpose and where he gets to show up in his life, but spreading more wealth and becoming more powerful in his ministry.
I actually have one personal example, if you can edit this out if you want, but I have one personal example that I just thought of that I would like to share, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So when I first started this church, like for real, like the big way that we did it was in 2017. It was February 2nd of 2017 we started. And for a good 6 or 9 months, we couldn't figure out what we want to do to help the community. And things kind of sputtered along. And I was having a really hard time fundraising. Having a hard time getting people to come. And it was very difficult. And we would talk and we'd meet every week. We'd talk about what should we do? What should we do for the community? And we have all these ideas, and a lot of them are really big ideas that we couldn't really do, but we were talking about it a lot. And so one day on my way to church, I heard on the radio that New Mexico had surpassed Mississippi as number 1 in child poverty. And so we were like number 1 in being the worst. So we're the worst in child poverty. And it just really hit me. Well, why don't we just feed kids? Why don't we just do something like that? So I brought that to the church, and one of the people had a connection to a school, an elementary school. So we started making breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack for Saturday and Sunday for each of the kids that got free lunch at that elementary school. And that added up to 15,000 meals a year that we make for those kids. Part of our church service, we're like putting food in bags, and then somebody goes and delivers those bags to the school and puts them in their backpack so that they don't get made fun of, or no one knows, right, that they're getting food or anything. Like, we try to be really conscious of those social issues. But as soon as we started doing these things for these kids, our fundraising went way up. And people started to come, people would ask what they're doing. Like, it just became like a magnet. As we started to give, even though we didn't have a lot, we were just starting. We didn't have a lot of resources, but we just started to give this food. And then all of a sudden, people stepped in and started doing more and more to help the infrastructure of the church, as well as help us feed more and more kids. And so I just saw that happen in my own life just a few years ago. And I didn't do it for that reason. I didn't think, if we start doing this, but I knew that serving the community was important. And if we're going to be a church, we need to be serving the community. And so I knew that was important theologically, but it also works exactly like we've just been talking about tonight, where as soon as I started to have an outlet for service, then all of a sudden more started coming in because it had a way out. And so there's a really deep truth to that even I've experienced firsthand in that way. And I can't believe didn't think of that before. But when you were talking, I was like, oh, that's a good story.
Yeah, that's totally true. I've experienced similar, been doing outreach, and the Lord always provides more than enough, especially when we're called to be his hands and feet, right?
Absolutely. So let's not be afraid of it. Let's not be afraid of the wealth. Let's not be afraid of the resources. Like, God wants us to do big things, and God calls us to do big things, but we need the stuff to do the things that we need to do. And the more stuff we have, the more we can give. The more we give, the more that comes in. And I just truly believe that.
So if somebody wants to reach out to you, Todd, and whether they want to donate to your church or to your cause, or for ideas, maybe they want to start a home church, or how can they reach you?
I'm all over the Twitter and Facebook and social media, so you can hit me up on any of those personally. My Facebook page is Facebook REVDR Todd, TODD, which is like my page. And so you can go like that page and connect with me that way. Is Reverend Dr. Todd is what it stands for. And then my church is called Exile, and it's X-ILE. So just exile.com is our church. If you'd like to donate to the church, it's tax deductible, and we'll send you a card letting you know what you gave each year, and you can write that off. And so if you're interested in what we do, feel free to hit me up personally or come to the church website, and you can see lots of videos and lots of other things that we do. We have podcasts. So if you listen to podcasts, Exile, just search X-ILE and find our podcasts, and our Facebook page as well. We have a lot of good stuff.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for including me in this and letting me let all of these great people that are here know what we need to do and how we need to take risks and how we need to put money into things if we want to get money out of things.
To discover the secrets entrepreneurs are using to create wealth and legacy, visit bigmoneyinfluencerslive.com. And here's a big ask. If you love this podcast, will you take a minute to subscribe, review, and give us a 5-star rating? Be sure and share with your friends and family. And thank you for listening.